Hi guys, welcome back. So we've encompassed the majority of what we covered at our seminars, and again, it's under the context of if you're not really going to put in a lot of training time, which unfortunately is true, or you're not going to get a lot of supervised training time in. So we need to really get into kind of that just how do we get them moving, how do we make them understand pushes, pulls, start adapting, and then also drills that you can actually get into realistically on your own. So we start from the beginning with just basic control standing, again, transition them into the floor, then start purposeful takedowns and tackles from a distance, and then start talking about, okay, when you get down there striking and things like that. That encompasses a lot. It's a pretty good coverage of a real life fight. Now we can start getting outside of that and we can start looking at, okay, we don't really know how this fight's gonna look in any way, shape, or form, so we can start adding pieces and puzzles. So today we're gonna talk about a couple of very simple takedowns once I'm already entangled that I can implement that aren't, they're what we refer to essentially as high reward, low risk. And the way that we generally define that is if I fuck it up, I'm either in the same exact position or better. So I'm not giving up my back, let's say, for like a hip toss. If I fuck up the hip toss and I'm giving up my back, that's not a good place for me to be. I'm not entangling my legs to the point where if I get to a spot and I'm too entangled and we fall to the ground, maybe he's in a better position or gets me to roll over. So it's like, hey, this might work. If it doesn't, you're still standing, or maybe you're in a better position than you were before. So as we're getting into this, however this fight started, whether I started hands-on, whatever, we're just gonna look at a couple of maybe basic positions you can get into. The first thing that we like to kind of really address is just heavy pressure, right? So this whole idea that if I'm gonna put him on the floor, if he's giving me very dynamic pressure, it could be referred to as snap downs, things on those lines. But the reality of it is, even if I'm just in this outside basic 2-on-1, it's me putting a lot of pressure down on his shoulder to get him to get that drop, and then essentially leading him out and putting him down into the floor into that position as far as that stuff goes. Now how dynamic that gets comes back to what kind of energy he's giving me. It might be one of those things where I'm pushing into him, he pushes back, and as he pushes back, I make that snap down and go, and again, heavy pressure down into the floor, and I can start transitioning into knee on the gun and all that kind of stuff. If I'm inside, let's say I have some type of an overhook, and I have control of his head, same exact idea. Now I can start leveraging and pulling down on the head while attempting my best to maintain control from there. So as he's going in, I'm going to pull his head forward, he pushes in, I pull his head down forward, drive him in, kind of plant him down into the floor from here. Again, trying to maintain control of the weapon best I can. Let's say I end up in maybe 2-on-1 control from the inside here, if I just have one. So I'm holding in nice and tight, I have pressure on the elbow, and it's the same exact kind of idea. I'm stepping him backwards, heavy pressure on the shoulder, driving it into the floor, and then again, trying to transition into positions I feel comfortable with, control the weapon, do whatever I have to. Again, no real rhyme or reason to it as much as I'm just trying to understand control over the arm, heavy pressure on the shoulder, get him nose over toes, use those pushes and pulls, okay? Same idea. If we get to this outside and I get pulling energy, he's pulling that gun back and away. One that's pretty simple, I picked this up from the Fit Fight guys, and I've used it successfully a lot in very dynamic situations. Let's say I'm on this outside and he's pulling back. What I'm gonna do is essentially step in behind his hip, and I'm gonna kind of knee bump him while I drive my head over. So as I go in and inside, I can knee bump, drive him over, and then maybe still maintain control and pressure there. It's a little looser, but it's something that, with some training, some practice, some sensitivity to that drill, it's definitely one that I've hit a lot in very dynamic situations, high gear, and all that kind of fun stuff as well. So it's one to kind of play in and put in there. But again, all these are going to require more time and more training. They're not as intuitive as don't get shot, don't get stabbed, pushes and pulls and fall. Let's say we start making our way to the back. So now we've got this back position as far as things go here. Now again, based on my energy, I'm going to look at, okay, he's pushing into me. I don't have a lot of training experience when I get into it. If he's pushing kind of towards the right, it's that kind of matador idea. If he's pushing into me this way, I want to step out of the way of it. So he gives me that pushback energy. I step out of the way. I pull him down and back, essentially right across the hip. And then again, I still have control of him. I'm over top. I'm still in a relatively controlled position. And the worst thing that happens if he doesn't go down is that I'm still on his back under control. If I have a little bit more background experience, maybe with judo, wrestling, grappling, anything in that way, I can start adding foot trips into this as well. Maybe he doesn't push directly back into me, so I run my hips in to get his feet a little bit elevated, and then I can kick his leg essentially out from underneath him, go in this way. So as I go to pull him down and in, same exact idea, different pressure just to dump him over. But again, all these are going to require a little more time, a little more sensitivity, a little more training that goes into it. But again, what we're looking for is what kind of takedowns can we do where we don't give up position, right? And that's kind of a big one. If I'm out here on the outside and I go for, let's say, a double leg, I lose control of the weapon to put him on the floor. That might still be useful, okay? Again, we talk about the differences when we go into it, but maybe I do push this across his body, shoot through the double to put him on the ground, and then if I can continue on the ground with him, maybe control the weapon there. But I'm losing control of the gun, so I'm losing position on it. I have to understand the pros and cons as far as that goes. So what we're kind of going with this is, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. There's no specific technique. It's more along the lines of, we want to look for, again, what we refer to as low risk takedowns. I'm not giving up position. Worst thing that happens is I end up in the same spot I was before. I'm trying not to get too entangled with my legs. I've seen a lot of people do inside and outside leg trips and things like that. Without really good training, that's kind of going down a rabbit hole you don't want to go into. So that's kind of our views on that. That's one thing you can start to implement into it. But again, this is kind of now we're getting past just every day I'm going to put in 1 hour of training a week type stuff. And you really got to have some time on the mat. So start playing with that, apply it, those basic concepts, not so much techniques, but concepts. We'll see you guys next time.